Drum roll, please. You have a book club announcement.
I do. I have been kind of sitting on this announcement for months because if you think back to our previous book club announcement, we did 4,000 Weeks, and I was torn between that book and the book that is now our current book club selection. I'm going to share it here on the screen for those watching on YouTube. It is called Barron's: Money, Power, and the Corruption of America's Food Industry by Austin Frerick. This came into my world via the Marion Nestle newsletter, which I am an avid subscriber of. She had, I believe, gotten to read the book before it was available for sale. She talked about it in her newsletter, and I hopped on the pre-order list really quickly. And I think that it is a must-read book for people who eat, but especially for people like us and the food founders who listen to this podcast to really dig into this book. So Austin is from Iowa, and over the years, he has seen that state transform from one with many small pig farms to one with a few large corporate pig farms, and the closure of many of those small farms and the loss of livelihood for many small farmers. So he decided to research hog barons. And as he was digging into that part of the food industry and what has happened over the last few decades in the world of hog ranching, he realized that it's just a small piece of a much bigger story about the corruption of America's food industry. So he decided to profile 7 barons with the goal of using each one as a window into how power has consolidated and our food system has been fundamentally transformed. And so in the book, so interesting, he talks about the transformation that has happened in the last 40 years in the areas of the hog industry, the grain industry, the coffee industry, the dairy industry, the berry industry, slaughter industries, and grocery.
So first of all, Sarah, when you just said berry industry, I never even thought of berries as like their own industry. That's kind of wild. But also, I think it's really interesting hearing all of this come from you. I mean, this is something that you talk a lot about, consolidation. And it seems like even so, I remember the first time you read the book, like you came out of it like WTF.
Yeah, I will say that this is the most written in book that I've ever read. I'm one of those people who buys the book so that I can write in the margins and take notes and highlight and circle things. And the things that I wrote in the margins of this book are unlike any other as well. There might be some expletives written in the margins, and it comes from absolutely like learning brand new things. I think for me, I was familiar obviously with the grocery industry and the consolidation that we see there, that's been happening there, that's continuing to happen on a certain level there, right? I was completely unaware of what was happening in coffee. I wasn't truly aware of what was happening in dairy, grain, animals, slaughterhouses. I mean, those I have had a certain level of awareness of, but what Austin does in this book is that he goes deep. He goes to the history and really tells the story of how did we get here? What were the policies? What were the actions of, individuals and corporations that led us here? And then ultimately, what can we do to change this, right? And again, that is like one of the primary reasons that I think it's not only important for members of our industry like us to understand the many ways that consolidation is happening and what it looks like within our industry, but also how much corporate control there is over our food supply chain, right? And specifically for our audience. And I think the primary reason that I chose this book for the book club is because he talks about the many casualties, environmental and otherwise, that come from this consolidation. And the really big ones for me are the loss of local business, the explosion of inequality, and the removal, really, the absence of community wealth. And this book educated, informed and truly inspired me to continue on the path that we've been on at SDC and the Good Food CFO. I want to say thank you to Austin for really helping me to see that what I want ultimately is not more good food brands on the national level, but more successful local and regional businesses, and the importance and the value of that for the communities, for the founders, for their employees, for the farmers, right? It just goes on and on and on. And I think that businesses really do have an opportunity to have the biggest impact on that level.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could compare it, right, to not a one-to-one comparison, but like same with politics, right? We always talk about like your local politics are where things really happen, where things really impact your community. And I think you're right. It is the same with business. It is where you have a huge opportunity to impact the area around you, the people around you, those communities. And I love that this book seems to complement, you know, that value of the Good Food CFO so well. And so I'm really excited that we're going to be reading it together.
Yeah. One of the things that he argues very strongly in the book, as I said, is for local businesses. And he points out that as depressing as it is, when you sort of reach the end of the book, you've realized the current state of all of these, you know, industries, and the fact that we as a society, in a way, right, have chosen to build a food system that is dominated by a handful of barons, as he calls them. But he also thinks that it's freeing because it means that it is within our power to build the food system differently, and that we can opt to create a different system that better reflects our values. And he shares 10 ideas for creating a better system in the book. And I really appreciated that aspect. It wasn't just a look at all of this terrible stuff that's going on. Let me tell you the story of, you know, how we got here and we're all doomed. It's here's what you can do, right? But again, it doesn't fall on the shoulders solely of food founders, right? Or consumers, but let's look at this sort of with a broad lens, if you will, to say, okay, what can I do? What are the things that I can do, right? Which brings me to his vision for the food system, which is truly the same as mine. And that is a vision where any American can sit down in a locally owned restaurant or go to a neighborhood grocery store and buy affordable local food that was grown, picked, processed, transported, cooked, and served by people earning a fair wage. He hopes readers of this book, just like I do, will join him in building this system. And that starts with being educated, which is why we have chosen Barron's as our book club selection for this season.
I love that. And so if you are listening and you want to read Barron's along with us, you can pick up your copy in our Good Food CFO bookshop. Remember that whenever you purchase a book from our bookshop, you are contributing not just to the success of this podcast, but to the success of independent bookstores across the country. You can get to our bookshop from our website. Just go to thegoodfoodcfo.com and click on book club and you'll find it there. And then you can join us for our live discussion on January 23rd. That is a Thursday. And Sarah, we're doing something a little different this time. We're going to do it at 8 a.m.
Yeah. I feel like morning book club is the right energy. I like, you know what I mean? A nice like cup of coffee or tea.
I was literally going to say any excuse to have a cup of coffee with friends over the internet.
Exactly. Yeah.
So please do join us for that event. You can register as well on the website. When you click on book club, you'll find that as well. And again, that's at thegoodfoodcfo.com.